You're going to build your job schedule in the Schedule tab. When you first navigate to the Schedule tab, you'll land on the Gantt view. If you'd like to build out your schedule in another way, such as in a list view or a month view, you can do so. The week and day view are especially helpful if you are scheduling by hour as opposed to scheduling by day. Let's stick with the Gantt view to build out our schedule. When you start, you're going to add either individual tasks or groups of tasks to your Gantt chart. So let's go ahead and add a task group for your header. I like starting this way because then we can nest things within that group. So let's go ahead and add a group header here called pre-construction. All right, I'll hit enter, and then I have the ability to add in the task directly in this group. So we'll say design and planning. Great, maybe sample approval. Awesome, let's do bids and contracts. This is a great time to just brainstorm all of the tasks that need to take place during that phase of the project. Contract execution, collect deposit, and then of course we need to obtain our permits. Okay. Now we can add details to each of those tasks by clicking on the task to open up the task details drawer. Here you'll see that we can enter in a description for that task. We can choose a task type. In this case, design and planning can be my design type, but if you'd like to edit these task types, you can go all the way to the bottom and choose manage task types, where you can rename them and choose colors for them, and you can have up to 100 different task types. So let's go ahead and choose our design type. And then we'll choose the start date for the design phase, and we will choose Monday. You can add in a number of days or choose a specific end date. We'll go ahead and say that we need 12 business days for this. And then we can add assignees. You can either assign yourself nice and quickly, or you can choose another person on your team to assign to this phase. So let's choose Flo here. Notice on my own, I am not available on these days. However, Flo is available on these days. If you would like to see the conflicts that I have on my schedule, you can always click on the icon and see all of my conflicting tasks on the days that I'm scheduling. All right, let's unassign myself because Flo seems to be available, and then we can add a checklist. The checklist can be a list of sub-items that need to be completed in order to complete the entire task. So for design and planning, we can schedule the meetings, we can confirm with the client, and then we can log our notes in JobTread. Great, so all three of those checklist items need to be complete in order to complete the design and planning task. And then you also can add files, photos, and videos to each task and have a full conversation with all of your task members. So let's save this. Perfect. Another way that you can add your task details is by clicking and dragging directly on the Gantt chart. So for sample approval, I'm going to click and drag a certain number of days for that. And then bids and contracts, we'll give ourselves some healthy time for that one. And then for contract execution, I'd like to give myself about a week. And then we will also collect the deposit by the end of contract execution. And then I'd like to give myself a few days before obtaining those permits so I can collect everything. So at this point, I can either click on each individual task and continue to add all the task details to them, or I can also leverage mass actions within my schedule to make it a little easier. So let's choose bids and contracts by clicking on the number next to it, and we will select multiple items. And maybe all 4 of these items are more office related work. So I'm going to go to set task type and choose office work. There it is. And apply that action. And now you'll see it is applied to all of them. Now, there may be times where your schedule moves around. And so if we have to push back the start date for design and planning, I never want design and planning to be conflicting with sample approval. So therefore, at the moment, there's no dependency between them. However, I do want to make sure that there's a connection between these tasks, so if I move design and planning, sample approval will move along with it. Those are called dependencies. So let's create a dependency here by clicking on design and planning. We'll go to the after dependence area to add a dependency, and then we'll choose our sample approval. Notice when I do so, a little arrow appears between those tasks. So now if I move design and planning, sample approval will move with it. All right, another quick shortcut is to hover over the task and then click on the little dot next to the task, and that allows you to create a dependency by clicking and dragging. So let's add our dependencies quickly here. All right, and after collect deposit, we need to obtain those permits. You also have the option to add a dependency to the start date of the predecessor task. So here I can drag a dependency between collect deposit, and therefore it'll be dependent on the start date of contract execution. If they sign the contract on day 1, I want to collect the deposit day 1, so therefore this gives me some flexibility in there. Additionally, you have the ability to lock dependencies. As it stands, if I move collect deposit around, I'm going to lose that time that I intentionally set between collecting the deposit and obtaining the permits. I want those 3 days preserved. So let's open up one of these tasks. We'll scroll and find that dependency right here. And we have the option to preserve lag time. So we'll lock that. And now that line turned blue, and that means that if I move collect deposit, it's going to preserve the lag time between the deposit and obtaining the permits. All right, that looks good to me, so I'm going to click save, and we are all set. Now, if you like the schedule that you built and you want to save that as a template, you have the option to do so by clicking the export button. Here you can export to a template, name that template for your company, and then it will be available to pull in as a template in the future. Now, this just covers the basics for building out your schedule. If you'd like to go more advanced into learning about your schedule, there are several other videos and trainings that are available for that. I do want to point out the to-dos. Your to-do list in JobTread gives you the option to keep track of things that need to be completed, but that you do not want to include in your job schedule. This is especially helpful for administrative tasks or anything that has to be completed by a certain due date. So we can add in a to-do group, and maybe this group is going to be called Project Kickoff. So now we can add to-do items that need to be completed in order to do our project kickoff. So we could say complete the job custom fields. We could also include invite customer to portal and maybe add project files to the job. Great. Now we can add a due date for these items to take place. And then we can choose our task types for each as well. Now I could easily select this entire group and add a task type for all of them. And then I can add assignees to them too. In fact, let's go ahead and use the mass action there as well. So assignees, here we are, and let's get Taylor assigned to all of those. Perfect. Now we'll hit save, and we have our to-do list for the job. Again, just like in your schedule, you can template your to-do list so that you can add them to every single job when you create that job. So now we have our project kickoff list. If you have any questions, contact your success manager or email support@jobtread.com.